Hello Year 12 and welcome to your, Monday lesson. Clearly I'm still half asleep. Hopefully you're more awake than I am. Today's hopefully going to be a slightly shorter video. There will be an activity at the end that you'll be expected to complete to finish off the lesson today. But I'd like to cover the strange, curious little poem, The Clod and the Pebble. Now I've titled at the top there the name of the poem and then a dilemma. Okay, so this poem does indeed pose a dilemma, and this will make sense as we read the thing. So I think the only way I can start this lesson is by reading the poem first, okay? Because otherwise you can be completely befuddled. So here we go. This is on page 81, The Clod and the Pebble. Love seeketh not itself to please, nor for itself have any care, but for another gives its ease, and builds a heaven in hell's despair. So sung a little clod of clay, trodden with the cattle's feet, but a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters meet. Love seeketh only self to please, to bind another to its delight, joys in another's loss of ease, and builds a hell in heaven's despite. I got there in the end. It's a trickier poem actually, even just to read aloud, because there isn't necessarily an obvious sort of topic being explored here. Now, just to make it from the offset clear, we are dealing with perceptions of love and also Christianity in this poem. Okay, so there are two key materials that are mentioned in the title of the poem, and that is the clod and the pebble. Now, when I was first tasked with teaching this some years ago, I had no idea what a clod was. Some research was involved. So with the work of Google today, I bring to you my impression in image form of a clod, and it's at the top here, this pink clay. It's a piece of clay, okay, which we know is a malleable material. So if you grab a piece of clay, it's quite satisfying really in its non-set form. It's soft, malleable, you can change it, manipulate it, right? Okay, so it could be exploited, it could be changed, adapted. And then of course we all know what a pebble is. If we were looking at the two materials side by side, they are sort of on a dichotomy. So you've got the clod, which is soft and malleable, and then you have the pebble, which is obviously much harder, immovable, stagnant. Okay, so if I said this poem is about love, take a look at my two love hearts here. We have one that is chained, okay, a heart that is chained and closed up tight, and then we have this blossoming heart just underneath. So again, two diametrically opposed images. Now, each of these hearts correspond with the two materials, so you could probably guess, right? But I want you to have a go. At the bottom there's a quick task. It will take you 2 minutes if that. I've asked you, if love was a clod, what would it be like? Okay, what sort of thing would your love be like if it was like a clod? And I said things like it can be manipulated, malleable, move, free. Okay, what would love be like if it was that pebble, that hard, sort of immovable sort of pebble in that moment? Okay, so have a quick go. If you know what the hell I'm talking about this morning, good for you. This is quite tricky, but have a pause and see if you can finish those two sentences for me. Okay, let me get this straight. If you look at the poem, okay, the two different natural materials here, the clod and the pebble, they are metaphors for love. Okay, the poem's in two halves. Okay, the first half of the poem mentions the type of love that is represented by the clod and the open heart, the blossoming heart. Okay, so the clod says that love seeketh not itself to please, nor for itself have any care, but for another gives its ease. Okay, so the clod's type of love is totally concerned with the love of others. Okay, so it's this big open blossoming heart that is constantly giving out love for others. Okay, it should not consider its own needs. It is a selfless love. It is essentially oblivious to its own needs. Okay, now you might say, okay, that sounds quite good. Yeah, on the surface we have this opening, sort of blossoming heart, a material that is soft and malleable and not stagnant and tough. However, okay, when you get to the little part where you notice it's the clod singing this, and of course it's personified, so sung a little clod of clay. It mentions that the clod is actually trodden with the cattle's feet. And therein lies the first of our dilemmas, because despite the sort of pastoral setting, this being a poem that basically personifies parts of nature, so nature abounds, the clod here, whilst it is totally concerned with the love of others, and it has this open and sort of generous love, it is downtrodden by the feet of cattle. Okay? So, if the reader acknowledges and embraces the love that the clod suggests we have, okay, this selfless love, then they are basically consenting to being metaphorically trodden upon by others. Okay? It's like if you open your heart so fully without any barriers whatsoever, then you do unfortunately make yourself vulnerable. Okay, so you could say, and this is a song of experience, that the first half of the poem shows this sort of unassuming, idealistic version of love. Okay, which is beautiful in its intentions, but unfortunately in Blake's age, open to vulnerability and exploitation. When we look at the other version of love, though, the second dilemma is that it in itself is not desirable either. Okay, because it says here, you get the pebble and then it warbled out these meters meeting it, and it sings, "Love seeketh only self to please, to bind another to its delight." Okay, joys in another's loss of ease. So the pebble is singing a different song entirely, and this is where the chained heart comes into play. I mean, it literally mentions the verb bind. To bind another means to tie someone to. Okay, so the pebble is singing a different song entirely. This love is possessive, and it's cruel, and it seeks to make a hell in the midst of heaven. Okay, so the clod is optimistic, the pebble is pessimistic and cynical in its perception of love. Now, the ultimate dilemma, Year 12, is that who's better off here? I know they're personifications of natural material, I know that, but they represent bigger ideas. But who is better off, the clod or the pebble? Well, I hate to say it, it seems as if in one instance the pebble is, in their binding force of love, because they are not exposed and vulnerable to the cruelties of the contemporary world. You might argue, and I can already sense some of you sitting there thinking, well, hang on though. Surely this pebble is deeply unhappy in its cynicism. I feel mad even saying this pebble. You know what I mean, right? This embodiment of humanity is unhappy. Well, sure, they are. Okay, in their sentiment of cruelty. So what do we have here? We have a dichotomy, two completely different, diametrically opposed metaphors for love. What is the ideal? Okay, well, the ideal always has to be somewhere in the centre, somewhere like balance. Ideal Christian love, okay, is the ideal love. It's not possessive and it's not completely self-sacrificing. Okay, so the poem, just looking at it on the page, it's one of our shortest poems. It is, of course, 3 stanzas of quatrains, so it's very structured visibly on the page. Okay, I've just mentioned on the right hand side there's of course repetition in this poem. It's fairly cyclical in structure, so it begins with love seeketh and it ends with love seeketh. So you could say the cyclical structure here shows the great importance of this subject Of course, love being at the centre of what Blake believed was true Christianity. Okay, it should evolve around love and really nothing more. Everything should come from love. So it starts with love, it ends with love, and that cyclical repetition is important there. Now, it is a A-B in the first stanza, and then you've got clay, brook, feet, meet, and it drops out, and then at the end you've got A-B. Again, it's kind of cyclical in that way. It's far more sort of, the meter's far more clear, or what's the word I want here? What do I want? Even. It matches the beginning and end that is in the centre. And I suppose because the centre is the sort of dilemma, it's the moment where you go, who am I with here? Am I with the Clod? Am I with the Pebble? Because they seem in the centre to be kind of jousting for attention. You have the Clod singing, it's trod, and then the Pebble takes over. What did we say about experience? We said that experience always seeks to dominate, and that literally happens in this poem. Okay, the Pebble dominates the Clod. Okay, we end with the Pebble, it cuts off the Clod's song. Okay, so we have that moment there. Experience always seeks to dominate innocence. Okay. Now, the balance, the cyclical structure of the meter as well, maybe suggests the balance of the two contrary views put forward by innocence and experience. Balance is what we want. But either way, as I said in the yellow box, and I said in the last slide, Blake is suggesting here that neither state is desirable. Both are limited, both are incomplete, both have their pitfalls. As we say, experience without wisdom is also undesirable. Because this Pebble here is not displaying any wisdom in its binding violence. Okay, this sort of senseless cruelty. So human experience needs to include both the Clod and the clay, both the sentiment of embracing love and both the sentiment of erring on the side of caution. Okay, so we can't have continual innocence without experience. Okay, and we can't have experience without wisdom. Okay, and without creativity and without sort of beauty. Okay, we must have a human experience that includes both. Okay, so that is the dilemma, and there seems to be a solution sort of communicated covertly. You know, if you when we're studying this, we find it. It's not obvious. When we see that the sense of balance in the poem, we need to find that happy medium. Okay, so in summary then, what's it all about? The soft, malleable clay has this positive, this hyper-positive view of love, where the hardened pebble holds the negative view. The Clod of clay has experienced physically, literally being trodden, yet still holds on to this positive view of love. The Pebble has a song that is filled with negativity, despite its picturesque setting. It's almost like the Pebble cannot see the beauty anymore. The Pebble is, within nature, but is so burdened by its cynicism, it doesn't see any of its beauty. It takes no reward, okay, in nature. So let me look what I've said. I don't want to read all this out to you. I like this little bottom bit where it says here, the two differing views are represented of real life personality types. Yeah, this is it, right? Are you the half glass full or the half glass empty? That's, I guess, the modern sort of idiom that we use today. That's pretty much what Blake's getting at here. The two different sort of extreme ends of the personality types. Okay, so you've got, one person, I've given the example here, that might be suffering in a great deal of pain, might have a disability, and yet still manage to hold on to a good sense of humour, right, despite their plight. And then you might have another person that's in perfectly good health, but is always moaning, is always a cynic, is always complaining about petty grievances. Okay, and so the two personality types are portrayed, but there has to be always this sense that we find heaven, we find the fruit, the good stuff, when we embrace that sense of ideal Christian love and balance. Okay, so That pretty much is the Clod and the Pebble. There's not too much more to say on this one. It's not one that people usually capture in their essay responses, but I just think it's one to have because it's really nice in terms of the idea of love and that as a theme in his poems. So it's a great backup poem to have. Okay, to end this lesson, because you've listened to me waffle on about clods and pebbles for far too long, is this political protest table. Now, the one key target, really, that was quite common across all of your 8-week tests was that you needed a little bit more, sort of to be a bit more explicit with your reference to assessment objective 4, which is your genre stuff, your political protest tropes. So I've given you really the top 3 in the poem, the kind of 3 umbrella protest tropes on the left hand side, the themes of protest writing, and I've given you the overview, something to start with, but I want you to have a go at filling in the medium part of the table. Okay, so it's quite simple. The first theme was the world of innocence with its safety and security. Which poems do you think most acutely capture that sort of idealistic, almost model of sort of change that needed to take place? Which poems would you choose for that? What quotes do you think are really beautiful in capturing the sort of portraits of beauty and innocence that Blake gives us as models for change? And then just a few points of analysis, just a few ideas there for that theme. Then you go again, the protesting against government power is obviously so key. When I say government power, by the way, you can look at any of the institutions, okay, the monarchy, the education system, the church. So again, going across the table. And then, of course, the last one, really key, is victims. Yes, the protest trope of victims. So how does he protest against the abuse of children, who are the ultimate embodiment of victimhood in Blake's poems? Okay, you're going to need about 20 minutes on this. Taking this to about an hour lesson as usual for our Monday lesson. You are expected to be doing all of the hours that you would be doing in school at home. So, we really didn't have any time to waste. Let's get this done. Let's not draw this out until Friday. Get it done, get it in the bag. Give me a like and a comment on this video. And please make sure that you are keeping up to date with your poem cue cards as well. Sorry if I haven't mentioned that for a while, but you should be making sure that all the poems we study, you're condensing them down into a nice, beautiful little pack of poetry cue cards. Your future self will thank you, trust me. Okay, I hope you're all well, sending lots of love, hope to